Okay, now that I've bought one of these Braaap MX450 dirt bikes, I want to tell you about my first impressions with this particular motorcycle. It's a little beauty, isn't it? The first thing you notice is it looks like a pretty good motorcycle. I mean, it is well presented. There's a lot of anodized parts. It looks like the quality of the welding in the aluminium frame is extremely good. And like I said, the presentation of this motorcycle it exceeded my expectations. It looks better in real life than it does on the internet. One thing I did notice about this bike is it's extremely tall, and it's taller than the KX450 that I was riding before this one. And it kind of tempts me to think about, reshaping the seat and maybe dropping it down just a tad. But it's extremely tall. Now, that's not a criticism by any means. It's just the reality for me being one of the shorter riders. Now, power and handling, as I said, I had a KX450 that I was riding before this one, and this feels very similar to that motorcycle. In terms of power, this is a single cylinder, obviously. It's a big 450 thumper, but it's carburetted. It doesn't have fuel injection, so you're not going to get the same responsiveness and power that you would get from a fuel injected motor. But for the price of this bike, right, I love it because there's a couple of advantages of actually having a carburetor, believe it or not. But like I said, it feels very much like the KX450 that I had been riding prior to this particular motorcycle. The handling of the bike, it steers quite quickly. It's pretty typical of a motocross bike, a dirt bike. I'm not sure how it's going to handle on the bitumen when we put the motard wheels on it, so I'm going to hold out for that and make comment once we do that, actually. The thing that I did notice about this particular bike is that there's better responsiveness once you remove the baffle. So it comes with a removable baffle, and that baffle can be pulled apart into two pieces. So you can go like the first level of removal is just take the plug out of the end of the baffle itself, and then that frees it up a little bit, or you can remove the entire baffle. And I did notice that there's better throttle responsiveness with the entire baffle removed. So I get a sense that this is jetted in a particular way that matches the baffle being removed. Now, starting routine. The starting of the bike, this is the thing that took me a little bit to work out exactly how you do it. Now, I'll show you how I start this bike. I haven't actually started this today, right? It hasn't run since yesterday, so it is cold. All I simply do, and bear in mind it's got a carburetor, so it has a choke with it. All I've been doing is pumping the throttle 3 times, right? Pulling the clutch in, pulling the choke all the way in, and then just letting it start. There you go. Starts first time every time when I do it that way. And I like it, once I mastered the art of starting the carbureted engine. So very good. Now, a couple of things that you would do when you get this motorcycle. It's things that I found that a lot of this I would do with a normal, regardless of who provided the bike. Number one, check the bolts, check the oil, check the air filter, all of that type of thing. That's something that you would do on any motorcycle because you can't guarantee that some things on a new motorcycle that predominantly hasn't been ridden anywhere are going to be perfectly tightened. The second thing is check the things, with a good focus that would bring you undone. And they would be things like the rear axle, the front axle, the steering itself, and the brake caliper attachments. And those are things that I always run a fine tooth comb over, right? Have a look at the rear axle, loosen the bolt and retension the nut on the rear axle. Front axle, same thing. And like I said, those are the things that would bring you undone. You would do that on any bike, and I did that on this bike when I got it. The other thing that are worth thinking about when you get this motorcycle is and you would do this with any bike that you're not familiar with when it comes to suspension, and that is that you would adjust the damping to its mid-range. Now what that means is, like on this particular bike where you've got rebound and compression damping on both the front forks and the rear shock, you would set those to the middle of their travel. So in some of these cases, one of the, I forget which one it is, it's got up to 22 clicks of adjustment. Well, you would set that at 11 clicks out, so that's going to be mid-range. Now, that's basically what we've done, what I would do on any motorcycle, put it in the mid-range of all the damping settings, so that now you can go for a ride and you can make decisions about whether or not you stiffen it, make it harder or slower damping, or you go the other direction and you soften it, make it quicker damping, and or reduce the amount of damping is probably the correct way to state it. So that would be something, that's something that I did on this motorcycle, and I've yet to work out exactly what settings I'm going to have finally. But like I said, I'm waiting for the motard wheels to come before I do that. The other thing that you would do on these particular bikes, and quite a few bikes, dirt bikes have this, they have a little air bleed screw at the top of the fork, and of each fork leg. That air bleed screw, you should loosen it and just let any air out, because air builds up in the forks of these, and they put those air bleed screws there specifically so that you can release any build-up of air. So that would be one of the first thing you would do. The other thing, and this is what I would point out, particularly with a bike, you know, that is distributed through the way Braaap Motorcycle distributes their motorcycle, and that is centrally in Victoria. So you're going to get bikes sitting in there. Then the first thing you would do on a motorcycle, particularly a carburetted bike, is just drain the fuel bowl, because you don't know how old the fuel is. Drain that fuel bowl and then make sure that there's fresh fuel in the motorcycle. And then you go from there. There you go. So first impressions about this bike, really impressed. The appearance of the bike exceeded my expectations. It's far better in real life than it is on the internet. And the second thing is I've just had a blast, you know, running this in, riding around, and I've yet to, you know, really sort out the suspension and go the way I want to go with this. But first impressions are it's a fantastic bike and a lot of value for money there.